So what are your chances of getting clean and sober? We're going to take a look at 3 different scenarios. 1, do nothing. 2, go through traditional rehab known as the Minnesota model. 75 to 80% of us are treated in that model. Or 3, something called HIMSS, Human Intervention Motivation Study, used by airline pilots, doctors, and nurses. Hey, if you're new here, I'm Jeff. I was a lawyer in Seattle for 25 years until my own late-stage alcohol addiction blew up my life and nearly killed me. But I got lucky. I stumbled upon HIMSS-style protocols and was able to get sober. About 5 years ago, I started Vive on Recovery to help lawyers and other professionals beat addiction. What we're going to show you today is a model that demonstrates the stark difference between recovery under the traditional treatment as usual method and HIMSS style aftercare and monitoring support. So stick around. What you learn may save you or somebody you love. So what are the odds? Well, if you do nothing, your chances of recovering from a DSM-5 severe alcohol or drug addiction are somewhere in the 9 to 12% range. If you go through traditional Minnesota model treatment, you have about a 15 to 20% chance. If you happen to be a doctor, nurse, or pilot and go through HIMSS-style treatment, your odds of getting and staying clean and sober are 85 to 90%. So we wanted to get an accurate picture of long-term successful recovery metrics between standard Minnesota model treatment and HIMSS-style programs. We built an algorithmic statistical simulation model known as a Markov Monte Carlo chain model to get a sense of what clean and sober success rates look like 5 years after somebody goes to treatment under the Minnesota model versus being treated in HIMSS-style recovery. So here's the graph. And in the red, we have the linear average of abstinence relapse rates under the traditional Minnesota model of treatment. And in blue, here we have relapse and abstinence rates under HIMSS-style aftercare. And we'll run some scenarios. So this first one, we've got both individuals clean and sober. Next individual, as you can see, standard treatment Minnesota model, relapses shortly after discharge from treatment, gets sober again, stays sober for a number of months, relapses again, period of sobriety, relapses, and is clean and sober for quite a while until about 36 months, uses again, and this individual unfortunately looks like they were off to the races. If that individual, statistically speaking, had gone into HIMSS-style aftercare, there would have been one short relapse up front and then sustained clean and sober time for the remainder of the 5 years. This person probably got to self-sustaining abstinent remission. We'll run another scenario. Again, you can see a very poor outcome under the traditional model, stayed sober for about 5 months, relapsed for 4, tried again, and this person looks like they then were unable to string together any clean and sober time. HIMSS participant, no relapses. Another scenario, again, an unfortunate look at what happens in traditional treatment, relapsed right after treatment, tried again, relapsed a couple of months, tried again, stayed sober for about 4 months, and had at about the 8-month mark, it looks like about a year of relapse, tried again, and then at about the 20 months, 2-year mark, looks like this individual gave up. If that person, again, statistically speaking, had gone into HIMSS-style monitoring and aftercare support, there would have been no relapsing. And that person probably gets to long-term self-sustaining abstinent remission. And I'm just going to click through scenarios so you can get a sense. We'll do 20 of them. I'm not going to comment much. So you can get a sense of what relapse and resumed use rates and intensity and duration look like in the 5 years following treatment initiation under the Minnesota model versus what they look like down here if you've got HIMSS-style monitoring and aftercare support. So here we go. I'm just going to click through. Good news here. Both of them stayed clean and sober. Typical pattern, traditional treatment, and a little blip here in HIMSS. When there are relapses in HIMSS-style programs, they tend to occur very early on. They tend to be very short because people are monitored. They get caught. They have the support. So they get right back into that recovery paradigm. They're not allowed to continue to relapse and go into resumed use state like, unfortunately, people under the traditional model are. So the duration and intensity of relapse tend to be very short in HIMSS-style aftercare and monitoring programs. Good news here for traditional treatment, no relapse. another one. And here we're back to statistically, unfortunately, what we would expect. Again, an individual here under traditional treatment, trying, again, another one, unfortunately, some sobriety, relapse, some sobriety again after that 1 month relapse, a couple months relapsing, tries again for about 3 months, and then looks like this individual gave up. And again, you'll notice down here, we're not seeing any relapsing on this HIMSS bar chart. This is our 13th individual, and unfortunately, again, another standard profile after treatment initiation under the Minnesota model. Individual number 14, 15, and we have a typical short relapse that we see in the individuals in HIMSS style aftercare that do relapse. Individual 16, 17, and here we have an individual who was not buying into either traditional treatment and or HIMSS style program. Now, this individual probably lost their license either as a pilot, a doctor, or a nurse, because in order to continue earning a living in a HIMSS program, you do have to comply with abstinence requirements. And this person probably just quit and continued using. And again, another typical treatment as usual profile, and another typical HIMSS profile with no relapsing. So I'll do 20 of them, but you get a sense. Unfortunately, it doesn't look good. If you can see here, this is a typical statistical pattern under the Minnesota model. It looked a lot worse than I thought it would. So we tore it down. The entire model, chi-square tested all the data to make sure we had good fitness of data, made sure all of our assumptions were in line with the research, sent it back to the statisticians to say, hey, is this right? And they came back and said, unfortunately, yeah, this is accurate. We also roundtabled it with treatment professionals that we know. The general consensus was this is what they see on the street. So we could be doing so much better. If you look up here, I'll go through these lines a little bit. 50% of us will pick up and start using again within a month after treatment. At a year, only about 15% of us have maintained sobriety. And then if we look at here, we put 20% at 5 years. And this is not 20% continuous sobriety. This is 20% of the people are sober at 5 years after going through a number of episodes of sobriety and relapse. The research says 20 to 30%. I put 20% because, again, we've got that known data problem. The research relies upon addicts to accurately self-report. And we know that that is not what happens in reality. If we contrast that with the data on HIMSS style aftercare and monitoring programs, this data, we are highly confident, is highly accurate. And how do we know that? Well, we know that because HIMSS style participants are rigorously and continuously drug and alcohol tested. It's exceptionally hard to use in a HIMSS style recovery program without getting caught. And that's one of the effect sizes that makes HIMSS style programs so incredibly effective. The simulation graph we just looked at is a clip from a longer video we have where we discuss traditional treatment and HIMSS methods in detail. I also go through the peer-reviewed scientific literature and data we use to construct the model. That longer video is linked in the description. We also have a very detailed white paper that analyzes the success rates of traditional Minnesota model of treatment and HIMSS style recovery. If you'd like that, just email us. The website's here, and it's also linked in the description. Most importantly, if you have a problem or care about somebody who does, take one little step today. You don't need to quit today, but reach out for help. The help's out there. The problem isn't going to be solved in one day, but the thing you need to do is start the process. If you do it the right way, you can overcome addiction. Feel free to reach out to us. We've put together a lot of very high quality information on escaping active use addiction. And trust me, life on the other side is incredible.